tonight we have with us librarian, or should I say librarian, Damien Wang. From the education and outreach team, Damien will share about what he does, the joys and challenges of being a digital engagement librarian. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Damien Wang.
Okay, so I will share my experiences first and how I ended up in this place. This was taken more than 20 years ago. This was my very first job. I was with the president's office at the Istana. You can see me in the front row over there. So that's me. Yeah, so I was like just fresh out of uni. And if you're wondering why there's a typo over there, right? That's because in the good old days we had typewriters. And those ladies at the back, they are the typists. Okay, and we had 4 typists in the office, and this was like typewritten. So imagine they have to type the same thing for every single stuff, and of course mistakes happen, and it's quite impossible for him to spot everything, right? You can't do a spell check. Okay, so what I did back then, officially I was an auditor, and I sat in a room all by myself with lots of cabinets, and it was locked at all times. Yeah. So that made me feel like a prisoner. Yeah. Okay, so back then when I was a fresh grad, knowing HTML, that means to create a website, right, was a big deal. So I was the only one who put this in my resume, and I got the job. So back then you could get away with HTML, basic copy and paste JavaScript, right? If you know how to use front page in a few years later, that was an added advantage. But front page was horrible. Okay, Photoshop was a big plus. Fortunately, my brother was a graphic designer, so he taught me all those. And we didn't actually code HTML using what you call a WYSIWYG editor. We had to create from Notepad. Remember? So you have to key line by line. If you're lucky, you can copy and paste from some sources, and that's it. And of course, to upload the website, you need to know something about FTP. Does anyone still remember what's FTP? Okay, then internet security was, I think, at its very basic level. Okay, so my biggest concern or worry for any upload is a typo. So once I had a call from someone from the Auditor General's office, and then he said, "Can you please turn to this page? Look at this line. The word public is missing an L." Yeah. So that was my first shame. Yes. Okay, so besides doing the website, I was also partly involved in some research. So there was this very old coffee table book called The Istana. It was commissioned by the then president, Mr. Ong Ting Chong, the late Mr. Ong Ting Chong. So I was helping Dr. K.K. Seeds. So I believe some of you may know who he is. He's a very colorful writer, and his first visit to the Istana was like, wow. I didn't know guys could dress like that for work. Yeah. So okay, this book had a very limited print run, and I think some of those select books, they were like asking us like, can you give us some copies to sell? It will definitely sell out. And right now the going price is $500 per copy on Amazon.com. So I have 2 copies. And by the way, the photographer, Mr. Peter Milin, he was my form teacher when I was in secondary 3 and 4 in St. Patrick's School. So that was a good reunion. We could catch up for like 3 to 6 months. Okay, and then I left all those, it was a nice, honorable job, but I think I felt very confined. Remember the secret room? Yeah. So I left and joined the public service. So I remember when I was at the Bukit Merah Public Library, 2 girls from Raffles Girls' School, I think they were in Sec 1, they were supposed to do some service learning course, and then they asked me what was my occupation and why I joined the library, and I told them, oh, it's to help people. And the 2 of them burst out laughing. They couldn't believe their ears, right? So I had to tell, okay, the pay is good. Then okay, that made sense to them. So anyway, after my first 3 years as a public librarian, I was a systems librarian as well. So each time the server cries for help, I have to go and redo a reset and backup, things like that. Yeah. So from 2003 to 2006, I was with this group called Invent. It stood for Innovation Ventures. So there was a time when NLB and the rest of the public sector, we were all like crazy about innovation. If you remember names of has-beens like Gary Hamel, Can anyone still remember who he is? Oh, yeah, see a few nods here. Gary Hamill? Okay. seems to be gone. And then keywords like creative destruction. Remember? Yeah. So, so we had our own innovation program as well. And of course, we met with other like-minded public officers from other ministries. And after that, I did something which was totally like regretful. I joined the National Library Office. He is still under the same boss. He's a fun person, but the job meant that I had to do boring things. So, for example, virtual union catalog. Does anyone know what that is? Okay, for librarians, okay, those in the library profession, in a nutshell, it's a catalog that searches across all the libraries in Singapore. I mean, those who are on the system. So if I can't find a book on Lee Kuan Yew in this library, I can search for NTU's collection and so on. It was a bad memory. And then from 2009 to 2011, I was with the Singapore Memory Project. So we did some content development. And then came 2011 to this year, I was with the National Information Literacy Project. So it's to help students and the general public find out more about how to be more discerning when they consume information with all the internet hoaxes and things like that. And after the end of this project, most of us carried on as the National Library's Education Outreach Arm. So this is where I am now. Okay. So back in 2006, blogging was still cool. So you tell somebody, hey, I'm a blogger, I'm a government blogger, then it meant something. But nowadays, when you hear blogger, it's like you're either an influencer that earns money as a mercenary, right? I mean, people have to eat. So the latest, I think some people that are still around would include Xia Xue and her expose of the guy who had this audition is in the news, right? And of course, I was also involved in marketing. So this was a shameless marketing thing that we came up with the vendor. So that's a virtual durian shell. It's a traditional Asian punishment for wayward husbands. So for those of you who are not aware, Geylang is a place of ill repute. So we were trying to promote Geylang East Public Library. And I thought, okay, I swear I would just go to the library, right? And then the lady that was acting as the wife was my boss. So she's a boss anyway. And the kitchen at the back is just a backdrop, all right? We did the filming in the library. Okay, so what did we do to promote information literacy? Because info-lit is such a dull term, right, for the public. No? Wow. Interesting. Okay, good. So we wanted to give a spin, and we had this acronym called SURE, Source, Understand, Research, and Evaluate, which is still relevant today, because I'm going to talk about fake news, right? And of course, this is a big bang project. And it lasted for, this thing lasted for 3 years. And I was lucky enough to be selected to go to Vietnam to train some Vietnamese librarians in information literacy, as well as my colleague was there to teach social media skills as well. You can see Aziza at this, in this photo. Yeah. But it was basically chicken and duck talk because I was speaking in English and the lady was doing simultaneous translation. Yeah. I'm not sure whether whether my message got through, but each time I hear them laugh out loud, it means that whatever thing I translated in Google Translate had something vulgar or there was a typo somewhere, and then there would be this guy who would be laughing out loud and almost falling off his chair. Right. But at least that kept the class awake. Okay, so this is my current team now. I can't show you their photos. Yeah, these like those like the Secret Service, right? Yeah, so I'm standing back there. Okay, so the mission of this group, the E&O group, is to maximize the educational potential of our library collection, right? And to promote information literacy and research, and to support young and adult learners with programs and workshops. We had this focus group a couple of years back, and to our horror, most people were not aware that there was a library at level 7 to 11. They thought it's in the basement and the rest of it is the drama center, all right? And the second wave of horror is they did not know that there's something called e-resources, and, it's free of charge and accessible 24/7. So there's much work to be done. Okay, so where I am is the digital engagement team. We try to reach out to the public and students especially for anything that we have online. Then there's a school outreach team that handles the students. They are very important because they are our future researchers. And of course, what we are doing today is part of our programs and workshops to reach out to the general public. Okay, so some of the things that my team does is we will produce resource guides as well as DIY guides on how to use NLB's e-resources. And of course, now with the trend of fake news and so on, we have to sort of like highlight that as well. And I'll run through some examples with you later. And of course, we have to be on social media to reach out to the people who actually need the most help. Yeah, those are on social media. Okay, and last week, I was conducting this competition for school kids. These are secondary 2 and 3 students from various schools. So this is a tie-up between the Singapore Land Authority, URA, NLB, and MOE, of course, yes. So we are trying to get them to do digital storytelling using a new platform called Story Maps. So basically, it's like PowerPoint, you know, it's slide by slide, right? But with each slide, there is a map node that moves. So when you click, like advance to the next slide, there'll be a pin that will just appear and drop at the next location. So you can tell stories using maps, and it's quite easy to use. We might consider doing it for adults as well, not as a contest, but as a workshop. And then we also encourage them to use primary data from the archives, from oral history interviews, for example, and together with the secondary data from the library as well as the archives, they can sort of like touch on some things like on Tanjong Pagar, which is the theme for this year's story. So this is ongoing. It will end by October this year. So we give them more time to do research. And of course, we will provide guidance along the way. Okay, so what are some of my joys and challenges? Okay, this is a confession bit that you want to hear, right? Like, how is it like being a librarian? Okay, so firsthand, we have lots of things which are already digitized, right? I think this lady here was asking me, like, do you digitize certain like magazines and so on? Actually, we do, but only for the rarer stuff first. They are given higher priority. But fortunately for me, the hard work is not done by me. I'm only supposed to engage the public and to get them to use it. Yes. And of course, this has to be ongoing because as we were told, or as we were informed by our focus group studies, the usage is not as ideal. Second peeve that I have is we have got lots of databases, 114 to be exact. We have millions of articles which are searchable and accessible 24/7, but people want other databases as well. So for example, once in a while they want like law databases like LexisNexis. Okay, I hope the requesters not in the audience here. Yeah. Or of course, some will recommend databases which they would prefer to have, but of course, that will take time to process. Okay, then you know we are living in a very volatile and complex world, right? The term is VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. But when I mentioned VUCA, some people thought I was like cursing at them. All right, so it's actually a military term. So basically, we can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow. I think the government is obsessed with things like that. You have people like Nassim Taleb and his anti-fragile talk 2 or 3 years back at the library. And one of the things that I experienced as a digital librarian is sometimes, okay, for example, if I'm doing history, right, I know for certain if I invest in sufficient time and hard work, I can master a certain topic. But when I'm dealing with current affairs, it continues to evolve and new articles are added every day. Just think of the newspapers. Every day there are new articles. So I can't possibly know everything. So the best method is to be adaptable and to know how to find this information effectively and efficiently. So that is the crux of the problem. Well, like what I mentioned earlier, it's impossible to keep track of all these changes in the digital collection. And by the way, they are not ours to keep, they are not mine to manage, they belong to a vendor. We are just subscribing to the service. So it's like I'm working at a startup shop. I can recommend the channels for you to subscribe to, but I don't actually own the HBO collection, and I don't have any DVD at home. So that's the analogy. Then I can never say this enough. It's all free of charge, but people don't want to sign up because it's like it's a six-step process. So can I see by show of hands how many of you actually have a My Library ID? Wow! Okay, sorry, library staff not counted. Okay, for those of you who do not have a My Library ID, you can go to any library and register. You can even sign up online. Trust me, it's the only key that you need to unlock the hidden treasure. Okay, then this one, we have got articles online to promote information literacy, right? So once in a while, we get these nice compliment letters, very, very well written, but it turns out to be spam. Like you see the part in red. So this, according to this teacher here, she's from the United States, supposedly. She's praising one of our articles on butterflies, all right? And then she said, my students love your article, but they're doing a class project that requires you to sort of like add one of the links that they recommend, then you get bonus points. So it's sort of like now this type of request has evolved. In the past, it's like, I like your web article, but it's lacking in some information. Can I recommend my article? So now the model has evolved. They are trying to use kids to bluff you. So when we did some background check, this site is actually located it was registered in Chile. And then by right, there's the Spring Hill School in the United States, but it's in California. So it's impossible for you to manage a server in Chile, eh? Like if you're running a US school. And if you were to look at the website, or based on this link, right, it looks like a WordPress blog with superficial data. So when you click on any name, you get error. Yeah, it's just a shell company. Okay, and of course, when my friends saw me, saw that I was going to give a talk tonight, they straight away spam me with fake news to give me the like sufficient practice. Yeah, so I'll be sharing some of this with you later. Some of them cannot be shown for obvious reasons. I think there are some very young friends in the crowd. Yeah, so I cannot show it to you. Okay, so fake news is not new, all right? If you were to read all those newspaper articles, you'll find that since ancient times, people have been using fake news. For those of you who have read The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, anyone? Sun, Guo, and Yi. You'll find that, do you know who is Zhuge Liang, the strategist? He purposely spread the fake news that his master is going to get married to the sister of Sun Qian so that he will not get assassinated, right? So from fake news, it becomes real news. So in wartime is justified as it's a form of propaganda, but in the context of Singapore, this fake news unfortunately was picked up by a local newspaper. I was unable to find out which newspaper. There was no title mentioned by the Singapore Medical Journal. So according to that research paper, it says that in 1967 there was this fake news about like contaminated pork, and men who consume them will find that certain parts of the body will start to shrink and disappear, and they'll die a horrible death. So there was this epidemic, like mass hysteria, where over 400 Chinese men were warded in various hospitals in Singapore. All right, it was true, and then this fear spread all over Southeast Asia, and I think there was one recorded case in Hong Kong as well. Those of you who are slightly older than me would remember this incident. So back in 1996, I think it was the mad cow disease, and this article surfaced again because it was mentioned that, hey, some years back there was a similar occurrence, but it was pork, not beef, right? So you find that food scarce and health scarce is the #1 concern. So recently we have like fake rice from Vietnam, supposedly. the fake jelly, right, agar-agar, that's being sold at NTUC fair price, all fake news. When I went to Vietnam to train the librarians, fake news about food was number one. So they have fake fish sauce, which was supposedly high in mercury content. Okay, then besides health and food, the next concern will be money, right? Because in the past, people like to hide money under the pillow and in Milo tins. So I remember as a kid, I was asking my grandmother, what's this funny dollar bill? I said, oh, this Brunei money is the same as Singapore's money. So since I was a kid, that was the belief, right? So since then, there's been at least 5 times where fake rumors came out that there'll be a devaluation. So maybe the Singapore currency might grow stronger than the Bruneian currency. But fortunately, this was way before social media. And it was easily quashed by a press statement by MES or BCCS. And even in the 1970s, for those of you who were young when Goh Keng Swee and Hon Swee Sen were still ministers, right, of finance, yeah, there was this rumor going on that certain dollar bills that were signed by Dr. Goh Keng Swee would be worth more because it was being withdrawn from circulation. So it was like $1 was being sold for $4 to $5, according to this news article. By the way, I'm showing you articles from Newspaper SG. So this is our digitized microfilms of old Straits Times and other local newspapers. So you can just follow the link, which I'll send out in a separate document later. Okay, when I was a young man, okay, I'm still quite young. When I was a younger man, you only need to look out for April Fool's Day in the Straits Times. Like, then you try to hunt, okay, what are the possible like April Fool jokes? Then when internet came, the joke went international. You start to look out for Easter eggs being planted by other companies overseas. But now today, every day is like April Fool's Day. Like, you will never know when something that your friend or family member sent to you is likely to be fake. So in the past, okay, before 2007, that means before social media and WordPress came out, it was expensive to publish newspapers, much less bad newspaper that printed irresponsible and lousy journal articles, right? So as a result, because of this high barrier to entry, right, there are very few players, and most of them in Southeast Asia anyway tend to be law-abiding, because otherwise the government will come down hard on you, and you'll be fined or you might get sued by private citizens. Then come the age of social media, it's free. I can create any blog through any, like, okay, besides WordPress, you can go to Wix, all this to create free websites, right? And I can promote it through my Facebook. So it's all free of charge. There's zero barrier to entry. I just need the guts to do that. I hope that I don't get caught. And of course, if you are trying to earn money from Google AdSense, you need to register a domain, preferably in a foreign country, so that you won't get like impounded, right? If I'm caught. And of course, because it's done anonymously, I don't care about reputation, so I can see anything I want online. And of course, with so many players, it's almost impossible for the government to clamp down. Same goes for video piracy, right? Even though the US elections and things like Brexit, the Indonesian elections, they are focusing on politics, and then they're trying to get people to react emotionally and vote for the right party or candidates. Much of it is driven by economic factors. So end of the day is dollars and cents earned through Google AdSense. So if you look at those fake news websites, which I'll show you a couple later, it's always flanked by the same column which shows all the funny advertisement and advertorial articles, like how to, like, do you know this grandpa can improve his eyesight and you can see the laser beams shooting out from his eyes? That is a telltale sign. I think the latest one is it's a year with some gooey liquid. It's like doctor shares his secrets of super hearing. So if you click any of this at all, the guy that runs the website will earn some money. So small cents will add up to many dollars. Okay, so we know that Singaporeans like yourselves are concerned about fake news, but are we doing anything about it? So if you were to receive fake news, what do? Do you just ignore it? Just ignore, right? Because that's the easiest thing to do. So can I see who actually tries to debunk Any fake news? Okay, 1, 2. Okay. Okay, so what can we do to help us? So by right, these are the most likely candidates on our side. Okay, let's look at technology firms like Google and Facebook. Because they are actually in the whole business ecosystem as well. They are the ones who actually pay the fake news providers money, but of course they can't openly say it. So they have every vested interest to like reduce to improve the trust in the platforms. So recently, remember there was this YouTube hoo-ha about ISIS videos and certain ads appearing below them. So certain clients do not want to pay for advertisements that run near any like horrible videos that run on YouTube. Okay, because of the poor association, it will hurt their reputation. So by right, if you try to post something that is disputed by credible fact-checking sites, right, there will be this dispute tag at the bottom that says disputed by Snopes.com and AP, right? See the exclamation mark? Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to work at all. So I purposely pick one from Snopes and I try to sort of like post it online. Nothing happens. Okay, this was one of those things forwarded by my friend. Now kids love to play the fidget toy. So according to this news article, someone played at the wrong part of his body and he got stuck and he was hospitalized, right? So things about the thing about this sort of like fake news and urban legends is that it's very sticky and it appeals to your basic fears, like health concerns, for example. But when I try to use this service, it doesn't seem to work. So maybe Facebook needs more time. So this is what the Guardian says. Then, as we go along this set of slides, you'll notice that sometimes, like party A, okay, will try to do something, but someone else who is supposed to be on the same side will actually criticize it. Okay, this will be a recurring trend. Then, of course, the easiest thing that any organization can do, including libraries, schools, is to provide a checklist. So we'll go through that and use it to go through some of the fake news articles. Okay, so for Google News, they are working with human fact checkers to sort of like cross-check all the incoming news and to categorize them on whether they are actual news or not. And if it's for actual news, is it in-depth coverage or is it an opinion piece? So there's always things about actual news, facts versus opinions, for example. And there's this thing called see real-time coverage, which you can see above the red arrow. So if you click on that, right, you see like sort of a graph. They'll tell you the lifespan, the timeline of this news, like when did it start and what's the current situation like. Unfortunately, this is Western-centric. I mean, the fact checkers are from UK, right, primarily. So when we try to look for something about Singapore, right, the closest one is URA launches 3 residential sites for sale at Woodley. All right. The rest of the local articles do not have much info. So it's labor intensive and they can only focus at the top news of the day for their side of the world. Okay. So Google works with them, and I think locally, okay, the official fact-checking body is from the government. It's called Factually. Have you seen it before? It's on .gov.sg. Like each time there's something about some new government policy and there's someone disputing it, Factually will come up with an official statement. So that is the government's viewpoint. There's this factchecksingapore.org. I'm not sure whether that's a real site or whether that is going to evolve into a fake news. Maybe the founder somewhere in our midst, trying to hear whether I'm trying to say something about his website. So far, so good, but we do not know who that person or who those people are. So for now. Okay, then of course this is highly contentious. Each time any government, be it Singapore, Malaysia, or Germany, comes out to say, let's change the law to make it a crime to publish fake news, some people will be happy, some people will be very angry, right? This will take some time. And for the mass media, they are trying to spread the word, and of course they have to train the staff as well. So I think sometime in mid-June, there will be a conference called Keep It Real, Truth and Trust in the Media. I think it's targeted at journalists primarily. I think some uni students will be invited to attend as well. So NLB is, this is a shameless plug. The NLB is going to give a talk at the end of the day, of day one. It's a breakout session on researching the past to contextualize the present. And of course, if you have heard of Wikipedia, Jimmy Wales of Wikipedia has come up with this thing called Wiki Tribune. It's a 10-man team, 10 paid journalists who will work with the community at large to come up with real news. But of course, as soon as he came up with this proposal, it sounds very interesting, right? And the positioning is that the user is the editor. I'm thinking, how does that work? Okay, so it gets criticized by one of the mainstream media channels, which is The Atlantic. It says, trying to promote the idea that journalistic work should be done for free by volunteers is harmful to professional journalism. Okay, so you can see like friends on the same side of the fence fighting each other already. Yeah? And as for libraries, IFLA is the International Federation of Library Associations. NLB is a member, as most libraries in the world, I think. And even Harvard Library, they have come up with helpful checklists. But take note that they are very simple, just simple advice. So they tell you to consider the source. So would you know what to do? No, right? Then check the author. Okay, I can see the name, all right? Then check the date, that's easily done. Check your biases. Maybe you have to talk to your friends and find out what are your biases actually. Then things like, what's the supporting source? Is this a joke? And ask the experts. It's like, okay, these are just like slogans and pieces of advice, but it doesn't elaborate further. Then for Harvard, they also mentioned consider the source, look for visual clues. So again, these are just like very disembodied and disjointed pieces of advice, unless you attend like more talks by these libraries, for example. So on that note, I think NLB is going to do a series of such talks. So I hope that if you're interested, you can attend. Then we can share some of these tricks with you. Okay, we did a straw poll in the last couple of years. Each time we have some training, we just ask people, right? So most people that responded to this straw poll will tell us that they will rely on online sources for information. So that means mainstream media is like maybe 50% of the time, and online sources are like number one. So people actually read the news online. And some of them don't even read local news, like Straits Times. Okay, and they easily trust the information that they receive. So as long as it's published by a somewhat credible source, I would believe, right? And of course, they believe that it's someone else's job to check for the accuracy of the information. So if they buy a newspaper, they trust that SPH will actually do the fact-checking, right? The onus is on them. But if you read online news and from not so dubious, not so credible sources, right? You're playing with fire. Okay, so this is another news article. There was research done by NTU in October last year. So this is like the so-called Good Samaritan story, right? For those of you who are familiar, you see something wrong, but how many of you actually do stop and help? So if you see fake news, what will you do? Most of you just ignore, right? Because that's the easiest. So only 12% say that they'll do something to get the wrong post removed, right? And then some 12% would also post a comment to say that it's wrong. 11.4% would actually tell the source that what they have posted is wrong. And only 6.5% would post a correction of their own social media account. So there are not many good Samaritans around. So I'll show you some examples now, and I need you to vote by a show of hands to see whether is it real or fake news. According to a leaked Facebook document some weeks back, they say that only the fact checkers only have 10 seconds to evaluate each link that they see. Okay, so should we keep it real? Yeah, just a quick recap. These are some of the helpful points, okay, that you can consider. So just think of source, check the date. Is there something wrong with the picture, and what's the motivations? Okay, is this real or fake? This was in the wake of the WannaCry viral attack. So there was this news article by hitstreet.com that says that the top patriarch from Russia actually went to bless the server room with holy water. Okay? And then there's a visualization below that shows the guy getting zapped because you shouldn't sprinkle servers with any liquid, right? So real or fake news? Okay, who says fake? Okay, who says real? Okay, and let's see what's the answer. It's real. Okay, for info, history.com sounds like a fake site, but it's actually part of the news corporation, which is managed by Dow Jones. Oh my goodness, why do they have such a funny website? It is meant to be edgy. Okay, next. Okay, Singapore husband and wife are shocked that after they test their DNA, they are actually twins. Okay, so it's like incestuous, right? Okay, who says it's fake news? Okay, not bad. Who says it's fake? Who says it's real? Nobody. Then the rest are sitting on the fence. Okay, 50-50, yeah? It's fake. Okay, this is Snopes.com. It's like one of those anti-hoax websites that's trusted by Google and Facebook to be their fact-checking ally. So, okay, to go to the points that I mentioned earlier from the IFLA, right, the International Federation of Libraries, this is asking the expert, so you can check with an expert website, for example. Check out on the author. This article has been cloned many times to suit the context of different places in the world. So it started off in US, and now it has been contextualized to Singapore's context so that you feel more attuned to it and more likely to share with your friends, right? Okay, and then consider the source. Like, is there any credible medical journal that's being cited? None. This one. This came out yesterday, I think. In Thailand, Pattaya to be specific, there's an Angmo tourist that was wearing a shark suit with a shark's fin, and while he was swimming and scaring kids, he was harpooned 9 times by the locals. Real or fake? Who says fake? Oh, it's all inside. Who says real? Okay, why do you say it's real? You have tried wearing a shark suit before. I saw a nod of head. Okay. So what makes you think that it's fake? Okay, bear in mind there's a very gruesome image here, and there's a formerly happy person. All right. So what makes you think that it's fake? And this happened very close to Singapore. It's in Thailand. How come you don't believe? Okay, yeah. Okay, how many of you know how to use Google image search? That means you upload an image to Google. Okay, I see a few hands. You upload an image from your hard disk or from a URL, and you post it to Google. They'll do a check on similar looking images, right? So, okay, the photo is real. The background photo. This was a speedboat accident that happened in another part of the world. It's too gruesome to be shown because of young audience here. And the happy face came from a stock footage video from Mexico. So it's like a cut and paste job to give you the impression that someone who could possibly pass off as a guy that could pull off this prank could suffer this sort of accident, right? So it's fake news, huh? Okay, this one. So you have heard of the Blue Whale Suicide Challenge? MOE in Singapore had issued like a directive to all schools asking the kids to be careful. Okay, who says blue whale is real? Okay, the same 2 hands at the back. 3, 4, 5. Okay, who says it's fake? Okay, I'm beginning to see some demographics. The younger people think that it's real. Okay, not to insult anyone. Okay, do you know that the guy who designed the website, he was arrested in Russia and he's now in jail? So the game is real, but the impact is fake or unproven. So even experts also don't know. Because in Russia anyway, the suicide rate is very high. So with or without the game, teenagers will still kill themselves. Yeah, so it's not there's no causal link that's proven. But that's not to say that you shouldn't be careful when you have teens in the house, because teens can be very angsty, right? So anything can drive them off the edge. So again, if you follow the advice from the libraries, ask experts and consider the source. Most of the tabloids in UK, when they saw, okay, I think a lot of them cited this Russian website. So there's only one Russian website that was cited as the only source. So if you watch enough spy games, you know that it's dangerous to depend on only one source, right? They cannot be named. Yeah. Okay, so just now I shared something about Google News using certain things to show the trends, right? So I'll show you how to use library resources to check for fake news, or to find out more about fake news. Okay, we have this database called Factiva. Okay, we have a few news databases, but this is the only one that does this analytics. So for example, I've searched for something called Blue Whale, all right, and I save it as a search. So you can see that even though I asked for a 6-month search here, between Feb 2017 to May 2017, you can see an uptrend only in April and May. So it's quite a recent thing. And I think at its peak, for the week, there's about 30 to 32 cases reported, or articles published rather. Okay, then on the other hand, for the same period, fake news is actually, like the number of suicides being reported around the world in newspapers is actually a lot more. So if you're wondering, where is Blue Whale? Is this thin line here? So not many newspapers carry this news. Maybe the editors told them, don't publish, because we might not look so credible, right? So sometimes it's good to compare, like to see what the industry thinks. It's like so-called the wisdom of crowds for newspapers and magazines. Okay, then continuing on the trend of fake news, right? I just key in fake news, not joined together, but when I saved it, it has to be joined together. You find that there was a peak sometime near the election period in US, but recently it has dropped a bit towards the end of May. Okay, then still on Effectiva, you can also see which newspaper or newspapers are concerned about fake news. So things like newspapers like Washington Post, they expose Richard Nixon, right? CNN, and the New York Times. Okay, New York Times is more credible than New York Post. You see anything from New York Post, New York Post is a tabloid. So these are the top 3 or 4 newspapers which are concerned about fake news. They publish a lot more. Okay, then sometimes when I do counter duty, people ask me, can you please give me some names of experts that I can contact or sites for certain issues? This is how you look for experts. These are the journalists who actually write a lot of articles about fake news in this context. You can key in anything you want. You can see who are the experts here. And okay, these are the subject breakdown for fake news. Fake news is very big, right? But you can also see like which aspect of fake news. Is it about domestic politics? I think when it's domestic, it's actually US. Okay, national, presidential, also US. Then okay, everything is either elections or crime or espionage. So these are the concerns as reflected in what Factiva owns as news. And of course, companies that publish articles about fake news. Facebook is number 1, right? FBI is number 2. Okay, but this is for the last 6 months. Okay, Alphabet Inc. is actually the holding company for Google. I'm sure you know that already. CIA is number 4. Wow, so you can see a trend here. Like, who is concerned about fake news? Okay, then we have a database called Press Reader. It's for you to read the latest newspapers around the world. So sometimes when you hear about certain things like, let's say, terrorism, like terrorist attacks in France, for example, you are not sure whether it's actually taking place, right? One way is to check this, to read the actual newspapers in France. So this database will actually show you the popular newspapers there. It's all in French, but fortunately, Indo-European languages get translated into English. So you can see, and you can even see the photograph. So that is the proof that you need. Unfortunately, doesn't work for Chinese yet. Japanese, I think there's translation, but not Chinese. So for example, when I key in Trump NATO, I was trying to look out for the incidents of him pushing someone aside and saying wrong things to all the allies. Yeah. So there are lots of articles. There are some German articles which can get translated as well. So more or less proven. This is on the Blue Whale suicide cult, right, or the game. So this is articles that I mentioned. Does it mention how many? Oh, okay. There are 106. If you look at the green bar at the top, it says 106. So even the most recent news doesn't carry that many articles about Blue Whale, and it's like on the downward trend. Now we have something called OneSearch. OneSearch is NLB's meta search engine that will search across all the databases that we own, as well as those that belong to the archives, the museum, and last I think government records as well. Yeah, but for the purpose of fake news, you want something to do with current news, right? So if I key in fake news with inverted commas, I can actually analyze some of the things, like for example, the subject breakdown. You notice that this is in greater detail compared to Factiva. Factiva only give the top 10, right? This one you can show until the top 20. Okay. So normally, if you see these are things for you to click and to read articles. But if you download the thing into Excel spreadsheet and do some manual tinkering, right, and ranking, for example, you can see that the New York Times, again, is #1, publisher of fake news related stuff. They are concerned about fake news. Dow Jones as well. Dow Jones owns Factiva, by the way. The Time Inc. Okay, Interfax, I'm not sure whether it's a Russian news. This one. Okay, today I learned something new. It's called a tree map. I'm trying to break down the subject, the subtopics for fake news. So I had over 20 things that cannot be shown in the graph chart, right? So there's something called a tree map in the new PowerPoint that allows me to sort of like show the proportion based on the number of hits. So for example, the top subtopic would be false news on social media. So there are 875 articles that I found. Donald Trump is #2. So as you go down the line here, it gets less and less important. So I believe that if you analyze this over time, you can see the changes in the pattern, right? Like what are people concerned about for fake news, or what are the journalists and editors concerned about for fake news? Okay, then we also have, okay, you can also make use of our e-resources to check for new developments, latest articles. Like for example, this is a legal perspective. You can actually read the full journal article, because now the government, they're still considering like a law against fake news, right? Why do you read from the experts here as well? So, any question?
Mean that New York Times then has no fake news?
Okay.
Can you say that?
Okay, normally for newspapers, right?
Right.
They will
Washington Post,
actually like have a retraction or an apology that's published the next day if it's being flagged out. But sometimes they have to meet certain deadlines, but if someone points it out, they will apologize. But of course, for the purpose of discussion, fake news is not mainstream media. It's actually those stuff like small sites done in WordPress and social media. Yeah, so if it's bad reporting is from a tabloid, that is just bad journalism. It's not fake news.
I'm actually curious about the Blue Whale Challenge. There was such big news in Singapore, so I went and I did a lot of searches, and I found, like you said, there's only one Russian site that ever reported the news, and everybody else is reporting off that. I can't find a Blue Whale Challenge as a game anywhere.
Correct.
Right, so is it even a game, or is that fake itself?
Not all games are like in the.
Yeah, I know it says
in the
someone
platform or app.
invites you on Facebook and this
Yeah.
stuff, but I'm wondering whether even that is fake.
Could be, but it was never proven.
Yeah, so there's nowhere anywhere. But in Singapore, MOE is quoting it, the Straits Times is quoting it.
I think they are playing
It's
it.
becoming part of news in Singapore.
Yes, correct. They are just playing it safe. And I think as a parent, I'll be concerned if MOE doesn't issue that kind of warning as well.
Yeah, but I think it's so fake if they then refer to articles which themselves are fake, you know. So we are making it such a big thing here out of a Russian site.
Yes.
So is NLB going to correct that opinion?
I think it's already been proven that it's not 100% true. Yeah, but we can use it as a case study for our future training.
My question is, does NLB or anybody track fake news from governments?
Okay,
Because there is disinformation in times of war, disinformation in times of unrest, and sometimes governments' rationale is that it's necessary for public security at certain times, and then later on they sort of confess. But there are times they don't confess. And I'm not talking about only the Singapore situation, and it has happened in Singapore, happens everywhere, I think. So does anybody track it?
Okay, let me just share an anecdote from my friend. His national service job 10 years ago as a reservist is to read newspapers from overseas. So he'll do press clippings, and then he will compile intelligence for his commander. But nowadays with things like NLB's e-resources, you can do it in a couple of hours. So there's no one, okay, I wouldn't, okay, I can't really tell, but we do like answer questions from government ministries as well, as and when it's needed.